morning to everyone. Thank you for whoever made it early. I know it's not the regular time, and I didn't want to miss a class. This is how much I love giving these classes. So I am fasting. I'm still in the middle of preparing the meal, and I just stopped and I'm here with you. Last week on Thursday, I had a siyum in my house. My husband and my son, they're doing the daf yomi, which is you finish, the Shas, the Shisha Sidrei Mishnah in 7 years. I mean, there's always every 7 years a big hullabaloo about it. And so when my son finished it 2 years ago, like last time, my husband decided to join him. And when he joined him, COVID hit, and my husband started to learn with my father-in-law daf yomi via Zoom, because my father-in-law used to learn every day, and he couldn't go to his classes. So so Ralph started to learn with him. And in the middle, like a month and a half ago, my father-in-law passed away. And last week, it was a time for a siyum. They finished like maybe 1,000 pages of Gemara. It's called Masechet Moed. And we had a meal in our house. Now, there are two things that I wanted to say. There's the Avodah that I needed to do on myself when we had the meal. And there's what I said about my father-in-law that's connected to Purim, that I said during the meal, during the siyum. So I want to share with you what I said about my father-in-law, because it's connected to Purim. They say that when Bnei Israel received the Torah in the Midbar, the rabbis have a midrash, and they say that God told the Jewish people, I am giving you the Torah right here and now, and if you don't accept it, I'm going to flip this mountain over your heads and you're going to die right here. What were the rabbis trying to say in this midrash? They were trying to say that there was a kind of coercion in terms of getting the Torah for Am Yisrael. What kind of coercion was that? God chose us as a nation, and he wanted to give us the Torah so that we can start implementing the Torah and teaching the world, teaching society, teaching the nations that were Hashem's ways, that Hashem is the one that is here, and we don't expect child sacrifice, and we don't want it, and we want, there to be justice, and that the rich person doesn't always get what he wants, and that the poor person doesn't get what he wants just because he's poor. That there's justice, and there's truth, and there's kindness, and there's compassion, and all of those things Hashem wanted Bnei Israel to bring as a gift to the world with the giving of the Torah. So once he took us out of Egypt and he brought us to Har Sinai, he wasn't even asking us, do you want to accept the Torah? The rabbis are saying we had no choice. We had to accept it. But you know how it's like when we deal with things that we have no choice about. And we, at a certain point, we say like, I didn't even sign in for this. This isn't what I want. It was forced on me. Like I've heard people say, I have no choice. I was born Jewish. What could I do? And Am Yisrael got another chance to accept the Torah, and that was in the story of Purim. In the story of Purim, it says that we were out in exile, and when Haman says, Yeshno am echad mefuzar u'mefurad ben ha'amim, he was saying there's a nation that's totally scattered amongst the nation, and they're just trying to fit in anywhere they can, and it's not worth to let them even live. Bnei Israel at that point were in exile, and they were actually doing well. Mordechai was, high up there, and even one of theirs became a queen, even though she didn't even say she was Jewish. Like one of theirs became a queen, and Am Yisrael had an opportunity to sort of assimilate. And as the problem came to them, the rabbis say that during Purim, they accepted the Torah again, and this time without any coercion. This is what they really wanted. Like all of a sudden, they're going to be killed, and they realize, hey, we're Jews, and we have a heritage, and we have a mission, and we have a vision that we want to give the world. And they didn't want to, and they decided, we are deciding to accept the Torah. Now, when I was reading this midrash, I realized that there is an aspect of coercion in this as well. Not exactly of coercion, but our back was against the wall. We're being killed because we're Jewish, and then we are remembered of our Jewishness, and then we decide, okay, let's we're going to embrace it now that we're going to be killed. And my father-in-law, who grew up traditional, not really religious, used to open up his store on Shabbat, would go to shul and then go to work, enjoyed sports. He wasn't one who kept the mitzvot stringently or strictly. And at a certain point in his life, he embraced Torah. He embraced learning. He embraced his Judaism out of choice. No one forced him. No one made him. He didn't have problems. Sometimes like when people have problems, someone gets sick or whatever, they take on various things, various good things that they want to do. They wake up, they remember. My father-in-law, none of that applied to him. He decided and he started learning daily, waking up 5:00 in the morning, going to shul, going to classes, loving it. My mother-in-law wasn't so crazy about it. Like, she didn't understand, why is he leaving the house 5:00 in the morning to go to shul? Like, why can't we stay in bed together and then go bike riding together? But my father-in-law's level that he reached was a level of that I want us to be in. It's a level higher than Har Sinai that the rabbis say we were like coerced into it. It's a level higher than Purim, that when we're stuck with a problem, then we come to our Judaism, then we come to start to try to figure out who we are. And it's a level of being mature and deciding, this is the level I want to be. I choose to be Jewish. I choose to learn. I choose to do the mitzvot. I choose it because I know that God giving it to me, he gave it to me to enhance my life. And whether I understand everything or I don't, it doesn't matter. It's given here in order for my life to be enhanced. And my father-in-law actually did see his life being enhanced by his learning, by his commitment, by his knowing. And so that was connected to Purim, of what I spoke about last week. And I wanted to, give it to you. That this class is going to be Le'ilu Nishmato David Ben Polina. And now I want to talk about an Avodah, something connected to the Siyum that I did, an Avodah that happened to me. And I worked it out with my teacher, whose class I give over, with my teacher, Michal. So when we were doing the Siyum, I decided that I'd love people from the shul to be there and my daughters and sons to be there. And I asked, which is really an unusual request for me, I said, the Siyum is going to be 8:30 at night, and I request that it's going to only be for adults. In other words, no one bring their children. I wanted it to be an adult event. Now, I sent the message to everyone, and in my house, I have 3 extra bedrooms to host. So I sent the message to everyone, and immediately my daughter-in-law and son called and said, could we come with the baby Thursday night and stay for Shabbat? I said, yeah, great. And then I have another daughter who lives 45 minutes away, and she asked, could I come and put my kids to sleep? And I also would like to stay for Shabbat. And I said, yes. And the 3rd bedroom goes to my son, Shlomo. He's single. And I'm very careful with my single son not to kick him out of the room because the married kids come, but I like him to feel like he has a place in the house and everything is comfortable for him. And because he didn't get married, it doesn't mean that he needs to be shunted aside. I get another phone call from another daughter of mine that has 4 children, and she tells me, Ima, could I come with all the children and stay for Shabbat? So I said, Malka already, Shalhevet and David already asked, and Shlomo is going to be in his room, and it's his. So you can come for the evening, and get a sitter if you want, whatever, any kind of whatever you want to do with the children. But I want it to be an adult evening. So she's okay, but it's really hard to find a sitter over here. I was like, okay, I realized. And I was preparing and cooking, and I really wanted it to be a very beautiful meal. And I was excited that my husband's congregation is going to be coming 2 hours before the Siyum. So she calls me up and she goes, Ima, listen, me and Or really want to come. And both of us, it's important for us to be there because I couldn't find a sitter. And we were thinking maybe he'll stay and I'll go, or I'll go and he'll stay. We really both want to come. I'll come and we'll sleep, with mattresses on the floor, and I'll put the kids to sleep in your bed. And when everyone clears off, we'll put mattresses on the living room floor and we'll just sleep in the living room. And I said, first of all, my heart sunk a little bit. And I said, fine. If the kids are sleeping, then it's okay. Then go for it. And I said fine, and I really wasn't fine. I didn't say exactly what I wanted. And I had a choice. I had a choice to tell my daughter, so you could come or your husband could come. I really wanted it to be without children. But I said, fine, let's roll with it. And she came, and her kids, 2 of them were sleeping, 2 of them were up. And it was a beautiful siyum. And she fell asleep halfway through. She's pregnant. She didn't even stay up because she was so tired. Her kids were up. And I went to sleep before everyone left. And in the morning when I woke up, I saw that they kicked my son Shlomo out of his room, and they slept in his room with the kids, mattresses. My son Shlomo was on the couch. And I wanted to start preparing for Shabbat. It was Friday. So we always say that we always need to remember in what's our description. When we walk in Hashem's world, what is our description? And immediately I went and I told myself, what's my description now? It's Friday morning. Under what description am I? And I said, you know what? For the next 2 hours, I want to be under the description of grandma. I'm a grandma. What does it mean being under a description of grandma? First of all, it means that I'm not thinking about my Shabbat cooking. I'm not thinking about cleaning the house. I'm not thinking about anything but being a grandmother, making pancakes, cooking breakfast, listening to the children, reading them a book, under the description of grandma. And the house is like partying. There's like 7, 8 kids, adults are there also. Everyone's making breakfast and eating. The house is like quite small. After 2 hours, I said to myself, now I want to start being in a description of a Jewish woman who's cooking for Shabbat. That's a description. Now, what does that mean? That means ignoring everyone and everything around me, going into the kitchen, starting to cook and clean up in the kitchen, starting to make thing after thing. First the rice, and then the hamid, and the chicken, and the potatoes. That was my description, a description of a Jewish woman cooking for Shabbat, and that's what I did. Now, where did the Avodah come out to be? Meanwhile, the house is flying. And in my head, I was grounding my daughter to dust. Not outside, not outwardly, but in my head, it was like, why did she ask me? Why is she here? Why are all the kids here? I want to just cook quietly. I want my peace. What is this that I said my ratzon very clearly, yet I'm still finding myself on Friday with the house flying and I'm cooking. And I don't understand this. And what am I supposed to do about it? And why does my daughter always get what she wants? Okay, all these thoughts are thoughts that put me in a jungle mode. For anyone that's listening for the first time, so we have an opportunity to be in this world in a jungle mode where it's like, all the time making calculations and all the time thinking that things come at the expense of something else, or that we are at unrest, or that our mind is like racing with various things that we're not happy with, or that annoy us, or whatever. And it calls to be in the jungle world. And there's a world that's a world that we don't want to be in, because in that world, there's no Hashem. If anyone were to look inside my head on that Friday, they would say, there's no God in this world. Michal runs everything. This world is a lousy place where people take advantage of you, control you, and you're a victim. You have nothing to do about it. So if anyone would have been looking in my head, they would have said, no, God doesn't exist over there. There's no God. And we want to walk in a world of a Gan Eden, a world where there's a peace of mind within our heads, that everything and anything that happens to us, we can accept with equanimity, because we know it's from Hashem. We know it's from him. We know it's a journey that we're going through. It's a path. It's a learning we need to learn, et cetera, et cetera. So I was, I didn't know what to do with all those thoughts that were happening in my head. And I asked my teacher, like, what do you think about this story? So she said, first of all, it's a story that I made up. It's a story that I made up because, I made up the fact that Shlomo needs to be in his own room and he can't give his room up. And then I make myself anxious about it. No, Shlomo can give up his room and they can be in the room, et cetera, et cetera. However, really the avodah is that when we have a choice to make, right? I had a choice to tell my daughter, either you come or your husband comes, or to say everyone comes. And I decided to tell her to let everyone come. I'm not choosing between one or the other. Really what I'm choosing is I'm choosing God. What does it mean I'm choosing God instead of choosing one or the other? We think that we have one choice or the other choice, and that we're making a choice and we choose, one thing. But really what we're trying to choose is we're trying to know that we have one, we have the other, and we choose to be with the one. The choice that I made, in that choice, God exists. And when in my head, I start thinking, why did I, and why did she, and whatever, it means that I didn't choose God. I chose to leave him and to question the choice that I decided, which is to walk with him. I'm hoping I'm making myself clear, but as Jews, our job in this world is to take two opposing things and make it into one. Now, how do we take two opposing things? We take two opposing things when we have two opposing decisions to make, two opposing ritzonot. We walk in this world with our ratzon, with our desires. And our desires are usually very opposing. I want to have a Shabbat alone with my husband, and I want to have a Shabbat with 10 guests. I want to get out of bed and go to shul for minyan, and I would like to stay under the covers and read a book. Now, whatever we decide, in that decision is God, and we walk with him. So once I decided my daughter is coming, and she could come with her children and sleep and whatever, God is with me in that, and there's no more questioning myself any longer. I'm gonna explain that a little bit further. There was a woman who wanted to do an avodah with me, who wanted to call up and do an avodah. And she finally called me up and she said, Michal, I have an avodah to do with you. And I said, what is it? She said, you know what? I was going to call you for one thing, but I want to do a different thing at the avodah. I've been wanting to call you for the longest time, but every time I want to call you, I think to myself, oh, she's probably very busy. Oh, the question is not really so important. Try to work it out by yourself. Is it good for her? Will you have time? What is she going to think? Right? Now, we are trying. So I did an avodah with her, but before I did the avodah with her, I was telling her that she lives in a world of the jungle because she's constantly doing calculations in her head. And the calculations are the things that I need to depart from me in my life. And why do I need to depart from these calculations in my life? Or even the calculations that I was going through, when my daughter decided to come and Friday and everything is flying and the cooking, and I'm thinking, and why did she? And now what's going to happen? And I'm going to finish for Shabbat. Is the house going to be clean? Is the house not going to be clean? All of these are calculations. Now, these calculations put us directly in the jungle, and we want to part ways with these calculations. So first of all, this learning that we're doing is the attempt, and the aim is to reach simplicity. We're learning how to walk an internal walk, right? In Hashem's world, and we want to walk in a simple way. And the question is, how do we walk here in Hashem's world? In a simple way, in an internal way where I'm not making calculations, where I'm not grinding people up in my head, where I'm not going into other people's head. So we accept upon ourselves, all of us, and everyone that's learning this, to walk in Hashem's world in a calm way, where I have an internal serenity. So what do I have to do for that? First of all, I need to let go. I need to give up. I need to relinquish. The word that I'm looking for is relinquish. I need to relinquish all the thoughts in my head so that Hashem could put his thoughts into my head. I need to relinquish all these thoughts, to allow them to relinquish every thought that comes into my head that is not and that doesn't put me in serenity, that doesn't put me into calmness, that doesn't put me in a peace of mind. I need to figure out, where is it coming from, and look at my toolbox and see that and see what's going to help me deal with it, right? Okay, so I have a toolbox, and I'm trying to deal with different situations, and and one of the toolboxes is, and this is what I told the woman, when you want to decide what you want to do, like you want to call me and do an avodah, you take a walk into my head. You take a walk into my life, right? And our goal in this world is not to take a walk into anyone else's head. When we think about someone else, when we think about what are they going to think, or is it good for them, or do they have time, or does it work for them? It means that I'm going from my head to someone else's head. And in someone else's head, I shouldn't be. It's like looking into someone's underwear drawer. It's their head. It's the most private, most intimate places. And when I'm thinking about what's going on in their head, I am not in my head anymore. And that's a step into the jungle. Now, Purim is the holiday of the physical. It's a very physical holiday. We put costumes on, we eat, we drink, we give mishlochei manot. There's a very big physicality in the Purim. And in Tehillim, there's a pasuk that says, Mibsari echze Eloha. From my flesh, I'm able to experience God, right? What does it mean from my flesh? I will experience God. It means my ability to know what I want comes from within me, from within my flesh, within my heart. And if I go to other people's head and think about, what are they going to think? Is it good? Is it, is it going to work? What are they going to think of me? Is it going to hurt them? Is it not going to hurt them? Is it a good time for them? Is it not a good time? When I go out of myself to try to take care of the people around me, I can't experience God, because I lose the aspect of doing my ratzon, about discovering what I really want, right? So to call or not to call, like the woman that was telling me, I'm going to call or I won't call, it's not from her head that she goes into her head to try to think, should I call, should I not call? But there's an internal part of her that's saying, I want to call, but in her mind puts her aside, shunts her aside, and starts going into calculations about the other person. So I want to walk in God's world without walking into other people's heads. In other words, what I want us to do is stay in our own heads. Especially, I was telling her, when we try to protect the people around us, like, is it going to hurt her feelings? What is she going to think? Is it good for her? Is it a good time? Is it is it too much? Maybe she's not going to be able to. That's what I call protecting the people around us, right? When we protect the people around us, we're actually creating weak people. The people stay weak, as opposed to me, like, staying within my own head and within my own heart, and staying connected to God and to my Ratzon, and saying, I would like to call up Michal and do an Avodah, and realizing that I know how to take care of myself. people around me all know or need to learn how to take care of themselves. Everyone has their own difficulty. Everyone has the path that they're walking in this life. And instead of trying to protect the people around us, and specifically our children who we try to protect, our biggest gift is to give them tools in order to teach them how to deal with life. It's not to protect them, right? So when we want to actually take a person out of his stress and distress, you know what, before I tell you what we need to do when we want to take people out of their distress, because it's not for us to want to take anyone out of their distress, but in Israel, they had a really interesting experiment. There was how to say a pneumonia in English is anyone help me? Does anyone know how to say pneumonia in English? I'll describe what it is. It's a place where girls whose parents were abusive, parents were incarcerated, parents died, girls that had a shelter. Thank you. There was a shelter here for girls who were abused, parents in jail, orphaned, and they were really in very bad situations. They had very good care because in Israel, there was a program that's called national service. And women, instead of going into the army, they give 2 years of national service where they serve in various hospitals, where they serve in shelters and, places that they're needed. And they took the top girls to be with these girls in the shelter. They took top women to be with these girls in the shelter. And they did a research that these girls were really, why were they in such a horrible state? They were in a horrible state because they lacked love. No one ever loved them. Their parents either abused them or were drug users or were in jail. And so the decision was, let's try to give them as much love as possible and see if it would take them out of their dysfunction. So they decided to do it for a year and see what would happen. They gave each girl, she had a bat shirut, who was with her and loved her and cared for her and, helped with her homework and just showed her how much she's loved and wanted. And the girls deteriorated. And after a year, they were thinking, these girls lacked love and we thought we were going to give them love. And really, things didn't get better. They even got slightly worse. So they decided on a total different tack to do. They decided to tell these young girls in the shelter that they are very needed and wanted, and there are other, there are children or whatever that need their help in different shelters, and that they need to start like mentoring them. And they gave them a goal in their life. They gave them something meaningful to do in their life. In other words, they went according to what Viktor Frankl, who's a Holocaust survivor, who survived the Holocaust, and he was a professor before. He had written a book previously, and he wanted to save the book. The book went into ashes, and he wrote the book Man in Search of Meaning, where in the book he says that people, let's say in the Holocaust, if they had what to live for, they were able to survive. But people who knew that their whole family died and whatever, they sort of gave up. Like they felt like there's no point in living anymore. So they decided to take Viktor Frankl's theory, and they told the girls, listen, you're needed, your mentoring is needed, your functioning has value in this world. We expect XYZ from you. And after the year, the girls improved like exponentially. They couldn't believe what happened. So what they gave, instead of giving, love and feeling sorry for them and, processing everything what they went through, right? They were given a mission. They were given a mission. So we all have our missions in this world. And each and every one of us is to bring her tov, her own tov, to be actualized in this world. But when in our heads, we're trying to take care of the people around us, let's try to make life easier for them. Let's try not to hurt their feelings. Let's try, to make things more comfortable. But it means that we're taking ourselves and putting ourselves aside and not bringing ourselves into our full potential in this world. And our full potential is to say what our ratzon is, what we want, what we, what we would like to do in this world. So this tool in our toolbox, right, is what I was telling this woman that wanted to do the Avodah with me. This tool is a tool that says, before you do any action, you say, I want, ani rota, I want, every single action. I wake up in the morning, I want to get out of bed. I want to get dressed. I want to brush my teeth. I want to make myself a cup of coffee. I want to go through my closet and clean up the drawers. I want. And when we say I want, that is what we call walking with God. Walking with God. Because we said, from my flesh, I experience God. My flesh is, I want. This is what I want. And who says taking care of someone else is better than taking care of ourselves? Who says we get higher grade for taking care of someone else? Both of us are a flesh of God. I think one of the best things we could do for the people around us is to realize that everyone can take care of themselves. Everyone has the possibility, and I would say not even the possibility, but I would say the obligation to make themselves happy, right? To make themselves happy. And we need to allow that by us not taking care of the people around us. I also want to say that we have a drawer called wife. We're a wife to a husband. And there are various things in this drawer. There are various descriptions. But I want to say one of the descriptions in the drawer of a wife is a woman who knows how to do good to herself, how to make herself happy, who knows how to do good for herself, and as a result of that, be happy. Michal, my teacher, had a big question to ask a rabbi that was very, very complicated. She had an opportunity to do one thing or the other thing, and she went to the rabbi, and the question, and the rabbi asked her one thing. He said, "What will make you happy? What will make you happy?" And she's like, "Wow!" Even when it comes to even halacha questions, or it wasn't a halacha question. It was a how do you call it? It was a moral dilemma that she had. And the rabbi said, do what will make you happy. So that's a criteria. So I was telling this girl that called up to do an Avodah with me, you want to call me, right? You want to call me, you say, this is what I want, and you call. Because your job is not to protect me. Your job is to do what's good for you. My job is to protect myself. If it works for me, I'll answer. If it doesn't work for me, I won't. I'll tell you when you can call me. But what happens is when we decide to become a woman that knows how to do good to myself and knows how to make myself happy, there's one problem with that. And the problem with that is, right? I want everyone to hear me loud and clear. There's a problem with trying to make ourselves happy. It means that we need to give up something. What do we need to give up? We need to give up complaining. In our lives, we are not allowed to complain anymore. Because if I'm responsible for my happiness, and only I do my own happiness, and I can do it for myself, and I ask myself, what do I want this minute? And knowing what I want this minute, that connects me to Hashem, and it neutralizes everyone else around me. It neutralizes everyone else around me. It means I can no longer complain. I'm not a victim any longer. I am my own woman, standing independently, making myself happy, giving to myself whatever I need to give to myself, doing my choices. And so complaining is impossible any longer. But many people, complaining is such a part of their life, an important part of their life, that they refuse to relinquish it. But in order to be empowered women who live in Gan Eden and are not in the jungle any longer, we will give up complaining. Okay, I'm stopping for 1 minute. And okay, I'm just stopping the recording 1 second and 1 minute, and I just want to ask if anyone has questions. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we had a question, and I turned the recording on. We had a question of, our children are young and they need to be protected, and sometimes it's hard to sort of grow up and transition into the non-protecting mode, into allowing children to be able to deal with their own life and their own problems and their own, and their own issues, and even meet their own needs. So our job is not to protect our children, even when they're really young. I'll tell you what our job is. Our job is to give our children tools constantly to be able to handle life's breaks and life's challenges. Life is going to always have breaks and challenges. Now, and our job is to give them the kelim, to give them the tools to be able to deal with it. So I'll give like a couple of examples. Like when children are very young, so we get them dressed, but there comes an age of 2.5, 3.5, 4, where they could learn how to dress themselves. And at that point, we give them the tools, we teach them how to do it. And once they learn how to do it, we don't do it for them anymore. We don't, and I don't call that, now let's say there's a lot of talk about protection, let's say from sexual harassment, or, that no one should do anything. So we're giving them the tools. We need to give them the tools of how to say no and how to listen to my ratzon. And if something doesn't feel good to me, these are tools we're giving them. We're not here to protect them. We're here to teach them how to walk in this world as confident, competent, capable individuals. That's the gift we give them, actually. It's not our protection. The minute we start protecting them, like I had a friend that her son, I had a friend that moved to Tel Aviv right around me, and her son came from a different school and actually had a friend in one of the classes, but the principal put him in another class that he had no friends, right? And my friend was freaking out and fighting with the principals and whatever. I really felt like she needed to give her child the tool. She was freaking out because she said he doesn't know anyone. What's going to happen with him? How's he going to manage? What's going to do? But it's not fair. It's not fair. He only knows one kid. Put him in the kid's class. No, like she's basically, the message she's telling her son: I don't think you could handle. I don't think you could deal. I don't think you can manage. I'm gonna turn heaven and earth for this to happen for you. And instead of telling her child, giving her child the tools to deal with going into a class where he knows no one. So our job is, and like, let's say even like my child asks me, could you make me an egg and salad? If my child is capable of doing it on his own, I teach him, first of all, you open the fire, you break the egg, you mix it, we do it together 1-2 times, and then you're on your own. Make your own egg, it doesn't mean that I'm not cooking for my children, because I have a desire to give my children. I want to cook. I want to give. I have a ton of shefa in me. I have a ton of abundance in me that God gave me, that I want it to flow through me, which is why I cook and I clean and I enjoy doing the laundry. And I have to get to the level that I enjoy also ironing, but that will come, God willing. Like all these things I love to do. I'm doing it for me. I'm not cooking for him. But when there are things that our children are capable of doing, as young as they are, we give them the tools, and it has nothing to do with protecting them. Also, even like protecting them from running into the street. My goal is to start giving them the tools of knowing what a car is, and a car could, and it doesn't mean that I'm not going to have my eye on them, but I want to give them the tools how to walk in this world safely. I'm not here to protect. I'm not here to protect my husband, my children, my neighbors, my friends, no one. I am here to do something 1,000,000 times better, is to create within what people around me competency to know that they could do it on their own. Is that clear? Did that, I hope that answered the question. If there's any, further question, I'd love to hear it. But it was so interesting, Lori, that you chimed in, because I wanted to, when I was talking about knowing what we want and knowing our ratzon, I wanted to tell a story about you. like I think 5 years ago, I came to the States and I landed. And whenever I come to the States, like I look around, it's a different world, and I enjoy watching what people are wearing now, and how the hair is, and there's always like different. The style always changes, and because I come like once a year, once every 2 years, like I really see the difference. So I saw my sister-in-law Rhonda, and she wore magnificent boots, and it's like, Rhonda, where did you get these boots from? I want them. She goes, no, Michal, you can't get it, they're very expensive. Eddie got it for my 50th birthday and whatever. So I was like, okay, whatever, how expensive could they get? And I didn't even ask her what they were. And then I walked and I saw my sister-in-law's friend also wearing the same boots, and I asked her, Joe, where did you get them from? Like, I want those. So she told me, oh, they're Stuart Weitzman. So I went online and I'm like, oh, $700. Okay, not happening. But I knew that I loved them. I told my husband, this is what I want. My sister-in-law Lori heard about it. She heard that I was asking about it, whatever. Like, out of the kindness of her heart, she and Hashem, like, really, I put my ratzon out there. And I said to myself, I'm not buying myself any other pairs of boots. Like, this is what I want. Like, and it was delivered to my doorsteps, whatever, like a week later. And I have these magnificent boots, Stuart Weitzman, and I'm wearing them. I feel like a queen, So I wore them for 5 years. And I also went to get them. She told me, like, you have to refurbish them, like, get them fixed or whatever. I had them. And last year, winter comes, and I always stored them in a felt bag that it comes in. I literally felt like the Queen of England. It was the nicest thing I owned. I stored it, and winter comes, and I'm so excited. I wanted to get the boots. And I look through my closet, and they're not there. And I rip the whole closet apart, not there. I look in all the other closets. I WhatsApp all my children. Guys, did anyone see it? Did I forget it in anyone's house? Like, I remember storing them away, and I was very careful with that. And no one knew or saw where it was. And then I said to myself, I knew that I was bummed. And I said, I'm not buying myself another pair of boots. These are the ones I like, whatever. I'm just going to wear the Uggs I have. This is a story about our ratzon and how we say our ratzon, and Hashem makes it happen, because when we say the one ratzon, we're with Him. We're with Him. We're connected to Him. And it's from my flesh that I experience Him. It's from that ratzon that I connect to Him. So the year went by, and then we decided that we're moving to Tel Aviv. The first thing I told Ralph, now that we're going to move out, I'm going to find the boots. P.S. I didn't find the boots. And I said, we didn't find the boots. And the house was emptied out. And I threw so many things out, and I got rid of so many things, but every single thing came out from under my hand. And I didn't find them. And I want to also say that every winter when I took out the boots, I would thank my sister-in-law Lori in my heart, and I hope I even sent her a message like, thank you for these boots, because I love them so much. We didn't find it. And the truth is I allow people to stay in my house all the time. Someone might have taken a fancy to it, might have gone through my closet, taken it, whatever. So now I came to the States a couple of weeks ago, and Ralph goes to me, buy yourself a pair of boots. I said, no, only those. I only want those. He said, no, we can't afford it now. Like, just buy yourself a pair of boots. I said, you know what? I'm going to go online. I went online. They had a sale. They had one pair left. It was $7.50, $200. Right then and there, I bought it. I got my ratzon. I asked for it, and I got it. And I felt like that very frequently happens when we bring our ratzonot out into this world, into Hashem. It's not this world. It's not the universe. It's bringing out ratzon, connecting to Hashem with it, making it one. I had a ton. I could have gone to buy a different boot. I wanted that one. I ended up saying, this is what I want. And it's connecting to Hashem. That is connecting to Hashem. Now, we're going to read now tonight about Mordechai HaYehudi, right? And about Mordechai, what does it say about him? He was the Ish Yehudi. Ish Yehudi. He was really like the head of the Jewish people, and he was very high in the court. And they say he was the head of the Sanhedrin, but he's called an Ish Yehudi, a simple Jew. None of his other titles were there, only Yehudi. It's as if the Megillah is trying to make him small, as if there's no, it's as if they're making just a small Jewish man. However, when you look at the word Yehudi, it starts with Yud, Hey, Vav, and then it has Dalid Yud. In the word Yehudi, it actually starts with the first three letters of God's name, Yud, Hey, Vav. And afterwards, there's another Hey. In the middle, Mordechai has this Dalid. So God's name and the name Jewish starts with the same, like the title Jew starts with the same letters. Because as a Jew, we are God's representatives in this world. And I came to be mashpia. To be mashpia is to influence. And I came to influence in this world because through me, God could influence in this world. Only through me could God influence in this world, right? And as a Jew, I present God to this world. And we, as Jews, got the potential to like model God. I mean, when you see models putting on clothes, they're modeling the clothes. That's what we do with God. We model God in this world. Anyone have a question? Okay. Wait,
I do.
Someone go ahead. Who is it? Who's that?
Michal. Hi.
Hi, Michelle. Go ahead.
So going back for one moment to protecting your children, the not protecting your children. So
Right.
you give them the skills and you set them out. And when you see that what you see them doing feels or seems or looks like it may be a mistake, you're basically telling us that we should just know them.
Okay, so I don't like to talk in theory. No, I don't want to talk in theory. I want to ask you, do you have an example? Do you have an example? Like usually we give example, like live examples. Do you have an example? Go ahead.
If you see your child is marrying somebody that doesn't look like it's a great choice, that feels like it might be a mistake or something is not right about it, what would you say about that?
So we need to give, we need to give our children the tools to be able to make choices. So, and like, if this is your first time, then there's another whole, I don't know if you want to go to previous classes, but there's a whole also topic of being able to give our children their father's Torah and our Torah, but really their father's Torah. So if you see your child, let's say you're thinking they're making the wrong choice, but the child really needs to have the tools to make right choices. And the child is also choosing the spouse for reasons that you need to find out what they are. My goal is not to protect the child, because you know why? They're going to then go and choose someone else, and who knows what someone else is going to be like. I can't protect my child from every passing car. I want to be able to give them the tools and to give them my husband's Torah, like their father's Torah, in terms of how do we choose and what kind of people we choose and what, and how we walk in this world. What is the marriage for? Like, what are the end goals of marriage? Like, when we teach them that Torah and we give them the tools to discern about people, then that is how we could be helpful to them, as opposed to trying to protect them. Protecting them is not going to do anything. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. So just an important part is also learning our husband's Torah about marriage, about decision making, about characters of people, learning what my husband says about it, and then passing that Torah on to my child. It's not I'm telling you, this is what your father believes, this is what he knows, this is what your father wants to teach you. And the reason I tell you to pass on your husband's Torah, when I say Torah, I mean wisdom, to pass your husband's Torah to your child, is I make an analogy of Hashem. I mean, sorry for everyone that heard it, but it bears repeating anyway. Hashem gave women the possibility to bring children into the world, and he gave man the opportunity to support and provide for those children. And when our husband comes and puts like the sack of wheat on the table, which was the case, or now the sack of money on the table, whatever it is. So when he put the sack of wheat on the table, we needed to grind it and bake it into bread and make the food palatable so that the family could eat it. Or my husband puts the money on the table, and then we go to the supermarket and we create from it a home and nurture and sustenance for our children. So it's our job to take the father's wisdom, that I think they say it in a raw way, and to refine it and pass it on to our children so that they could digest it better, because they can't digest the wheat that the father put on the table. It needs to be made into bread, right? So as mothers, it's our job, that's in our mother drawer, to make our husband's wisdom palatable for our children. And it's not protecting our children, it's guiding our children, guiding them. And it's really, we also put it in front of them, and they could eat it or they could choose not to eat it. It's their choice. Whether they want to eat it or not, I'm putting it in front of you. I'm not coercing you. I'm not going to do what God did when he forced us to get the Torah on Har Sinai. I want to be my father-in-law that jumps out of bed in the morning and goes to get the Torah. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, great. I just want to see what time it is, because I still have, okay, great. Okay, so we have 4 more minutes. Okay, so as I said, we are modeling Hashem in this world. Modeling, I mean, we wear his clothes, and through us, he through us, he appears in this world. And God's light that's going to come through me is going to come through the stories that I tell that I tell about myself, that I tell about the people around me, that I tell about my existence. When we read the Megillah is actually a story. And also, very interestingly, the Torah is a story. Like Rashi writes, why didn't the Torah just start with the first mitzvah? God wanted to start the Torah with stories, the story of mankind, the stories of how we struggled, the stories of how, we were trying to get along in this world, the ability and the inability, the jealousy, these are all stories that Hashem decided to start the Torah with. And on this Purim holiday, it's a whole holiday of a story that happened to us. Now, when we tell the stories of our lives, right, and we want God to appear in his light through us, we need to create stories that will make us feel good. If I want to feel lousy about myself, if I want to feel lousy in my life, I will create stories that will make me feel lousy. But the minute we make ourselves feel bad with the stories that we create, right? I finished my shalichut over here. I am not representing God anymore. The happiness of Purim is not dependent on no one but Hashem. He was the one that saved the day. It's not someone took from me, didn't give to me. In Israel, they call it achluli shatuli. Like there's whole societies in Israel that complain, they ate my food and they drank my drink. Like they took things away from me, right? So it's not an issue of trying to be a victim. In the States, I had like when I was there and I was I took like a year's course in Ackerman Institute, and I had 2 African Americans or Blacks, whatever. I don't know what's the politically correct thing to say. They were my teachers. The talk was constantly of a victimization talk. They took us, they enslaved us, they stole, they robbed, they, no fatherhood, no. Like once we have that talk, we lose the ability to model God in this world, to wear God's clothes and model him through the clothes that we wear. Okay. One more thing I want to say about the Avodah that I did when I was in my head complaining about my daughter, why is she doing this and whatever, I realized that there is the me that could look at everything and say, this is from God, and be happy with it. And then there is the mistress that's a part that's really not me, but it's a mistress that it's as if my husband is married to two women, me, and he has a mistress on the side. I don't want the mistress on the side to be there. And the mistress on the side is the one that allows the thoughts in her head to make her day lousy. And that's the mistress. No, I want my husband to live with the me, with the real me, not with the other part of me. So I want to bless us that on this Purim, we will be able to take the stories in our lives and turn them around and shine God through them and be able to live only in our heads, not to go walking around into anyone else's heads. I want to bless us to enable ourselves to be able to look at the people around us as strong, as people who are able to take care of themselves with no need to protect themselves. And Purim Sameach. I'm going to turn the recording off, but if anyone wants to talk, I will be happy to.